اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to a new episode of the SimplyRYQ Q&A series brought to you by TVQ.Academy, your borderless school of the Quran. Today's SimplyRYQ Q&A is related technically to SimplyRYQ Surah Al-Baqarah as well as SimplyRYQ Amma series. However, it is relevant to anywhere in the Quran, regardless of the series you are going through. It may be Surah Al-Baqarah, it may be Amma, it may be juz number 29, which we are starting very soon. It may be Surah Al-Kahf, which we are starting after we finish juz number 29, inshallah. It may be any part of the Quran you are reading. Once you master the example of Surah Al-Baqarah, you will have no problem. Once you master the example of Juz Amma, you will be good to go as long as you can remember and recall and relate. All right? So, by Allah's will, today we are progressing SimplyRYQ Q&A. We are progressing to session number 8. MashaAllah, we have covered 7 sessions already. Today we have session number 8, and our item today is 1. It comes in the form of a question that says, how do we read words that begin with an emphasis or end with an extension? Which means this question comes in 2 parts. Reading words that begin with emphasis. Emphasis here means Shaddah. And also reading words that end with extension. We will talk about extension right after we are done with reading words that begin with emphasis, inshallah ta'ala. So without further ado, beginning, how do we read words that begin with an emphasis? Now let's take a look at this. We have فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. Look at this verse. This verse comes in Surah Al-Qari'ah. In Juz Amma, we have covered this. In both Juz Amma Practical Tajwid series as well as SimplyRYQ Juz Amma, which is now being published or aired accordingly. Now, how do we read this? فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. This is a word. This word begins with emphasis, as you can see here. This word begins with emphasis. You are unlikely to hear anyone asking, how do I read this word that begins with emphasis, if he knows the ruling of the Tajwid relevant here. فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. He will tell you this is idgham without ghunna. Therefore, we merge the hidden noon in the ra without ghunna, without producing nasal sound or voice. We don't say fi 'ishatir ra. Alright, fi 'ishatir radiyah. You are unlikely to hear anyone reading here and say fahuwa fi 'ishah radiyah. Is it possible? It is possible, but very unlikely. People are not used to reading that way. Even though if you read that way, it should be just fine. Fahuwa fi 'ishah radiyah. Fi 'ishatir radiyah. Alright. So if this makes sense, then reading a word or beginning a word with emphasis can occur in one verse. Because of course it cannot begin in the middle of the word. So beginning of a word in one verse. It can also happen at the beginning of a word between 2 verses, 2 separated verses. It can also happen at the beginning of a word between 2 different surahs. So this can come in 3 situations. In one verse, beginning of a word, meaning there are 2 words, of course, but it occurs in one verse, in one ayah, or in 2 verses separated with a number, or two surahs separated with Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. All right. So this example of one word is no issue at all. فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. Even though it is no issue, let us simplify this. Imagine you are stopping here. فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ. Of course, you will turn this into a silent ha. We have explained this in Juz Amma, SimplyRYQ Juz Amma series. In fact, Juz Amma Practical Tajwid series. In fact, in Surah Al-Baqarah series. All right. So if you happen to stop here, you need to stop here. Emergency landing or stopping, you cannot say فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ. You will say فَهُوَ فِي. You cannot also say فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ. You have to say فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ. Now, if you proceed from there, رَاضِيَةٍ, the emphasis, the symbol of emphasis, Shaddah here drops because it no longer becomes applicable. It only becomes applicable when you are linking. فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. But when you pick up from here, when you stop here, عِيشَةٍ, and then pick up رَاضِيَةٍ, the rule that required this emphasis to be there drops and therefore is no longer applicable. All right. So just imagine that this is end of a verse and this is beginning of another verse. Just imagine that this is the end of a surah and this is the beginning of a surah. Once this is clear, then the next will be much easy, inshallah. So in one verse, فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. You stop. فَهُوَ فِي عِيشَةٍ رَاضِيَةٍ. This is Surah Al-Qari'ah. And if we take the example of two different verses, we will have Surah At-Takwir. Surah At-Takwir, which we have not yet published in the YouTube, but soon, once you reach there, you already know. ذِي قُوَّةٍ عِنْدَ ذِي الْعَرْشِ مَكِينٍ. This is the end of a verse. Next verse is مُطَاعٍ ثَمَّ أَمِينٍ. Now, Makeen, you stop with silence on the noon because you are stopping. Because you are stopping, this double sound drops and become totally silent. This is conditional or temporal silence. But when you link, the silence drops and the active nature of the noon is reactivated. So you have to say makinim. And you say makinim because the next letter is mim. And whenever you have double sound, tanween, followed by mim, what you have to do is you will have to apply ghunna. And because that ghunna is there, this mim got, what is it? Emphasis. So if you stop just like we applied or demonstrated in the previous slide, in one verse, status or situation, here we have two verses situation. ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع. Now if we link it, مكين مطاع ثم أمين, and you are good to go. No one will ever say, oh, because this meme has got emphasis, it's there in the Quran. It's there in the Quran. Cannot argue. Just because it is there, and then he will say, muta'. You cannot find that. You cannot find that. As long as a person is reading Quran properly, with knowledge and clarity. All right. But if the person is reading based on his own logic, then that's a different story altogether. We just need to guide him and teach him if there is a need to do so. So, ذي قوة عند ذي العرش مكين مطاع ثم أمين مكين مطاع ثم أمين. So this is the situation of starting or a word that begins with emphasis, but it occurs between two separated verses or separate verses. Now, let's take the example of this situation happening between two surahs. We have over here Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Look at Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. It starts with Shaddah. It is not in all Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim in the Quran that you'll find this, but there are some. And this is one example. The beginning of Surah Al-Qadr. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatil qadr. Now, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Inna. We cannot say Bismillah because of Shaddah. But why is the Shaddah there? We have to look at the word that comes at the end of the word that comes at the end of the previous surah, the immediate surah before Surah Al-Qadr. Now we have Surah Al-Qadr. What surah is before Surah Al-Qadr if you open your Quran? So if you open your Quran to Surah Al-Qadr, turn to page number, roughly page number 598. If you turn to page number 598, you will have Surah Al-Qadr. Below Surah Al-Qadr is Surah Al-Bayyinah. That is not what we are looking for. We are looking for the surah before, above Surah Al-Qadr, and that will be Surah Al-Alaq. So how does it look? It looks like this. The end of Surah Al-Alaq looks like this. كلا لا تطعه واسجد وقترب كلا لا تطعه واسجد وقترب. This is a silent letter. That is why there is no symbol on it. And there is no symbol on it because this letter, silent letter, is merged into the next one. And because it is merged, that is why this has got Shaddah, emphasis. But as we said, this emphasis is only applicable if you are connecting. Ignore this symbol. We explained this symbol in the episode of Surah Al-Inshiqaq and probably Surah Al-Alaq as well. I'm very sure in Surah Al-Inshiqaq. So check it out there for the Surah Al-Inshiqaq in the SimplyRYQ Amma series. Okay. كلا لا تطعه واسجد وقترب قلقلة. Now if you link, the qalqala will drop because you are merging. وقترب بسم الله وقترب بسم الله. So if you open Surah Al-Qadr, you will find this with Bismillah. But if you open the next surah after Surah Al-Qadr, you will not find this Shaddah on the Bismillah on top of Surah Al-Bayyinah, because Surah Al-Qadr does not finish with Ba or any letter that requires that the following Ba of Bismillah gets Shaddah. However, if you read here, لا تطعه واسجد وقترب, the end of Surah Al-Alaq, and then you move to Surah Al-Bayyinah, at the beginning of which there is no emphasis, you will still have to put emphasis because the rule requires so. But why is it not there? Because it is following the immediate surah above it. Here, because it's following the immediate surah below it, which is Surah Al-Qadr, there is a Shaddah there. Which means, by default, if we take away Surah Al-Alaq, Surah Al-Alaq ends with Ba. And because of that, Surah Al-Qadr starts, the Bismillah of Surah Al-Qadr starts with an emphasis symbol. If we drop, or we are reading any surah, for example, let's take the immediate surah before Surah Al-Alaq, we have Surah Al-Tin. Surah Al-Tin ends with this way. أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ. It is noon. It is not Ba. It is noon, an active noon. It's not a silent noon. So, here when we say أَلَيْسَ اللَّهُ بِأَحْكَمِ الْحَاكِمِينَ and we stop with silence, is because we want to stop. But if we decide to connect it with the next surah, and in this case we want to apply Surah Al-Qadr, which in the Quran it has a ba on it has emphasis on the ba. Do we apply it? No, because it's not applicable. All right. Alaysa Allahu bi ahkamil hakimin bismillah. We cannot say bi ahkamil hakimin bismillah. We cannot say that because there's no reason to do that. There is no reason to do that. If there is a reason, then we will apply it. And what we are explaining, we explain because there is a reason to do لا تطعه واسجد واقترب بسم الله. All right. So now all the examples we have given comes from Juz Amma. Someone who has been through or is asking this question from the perspective of SimplyRYQ Surah Al-Baqarah and not from the perspective of SimplyRYQ Juz Amma will be asking. So where is my question? The thing is, the examples I have given just now from Juz Amma, even though they are from Juz Amma, once it is understood, one can easily apply it and make sense of, or whatever problem he is having in Surah Al-Baqarah will make sense and be solved automatically. However, here we have an example from Surah Al-Baqarah. This verse is the beginning of episode number 70. ما يود الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب ولا المشركين أن We read it this way. ما يود الذين كفروا من أهل الكتاب ولا المشركين أن ينزل عليكم من خير من ربكم. Now, if you look at this start with emphasis. Can we say ما يود? We cannot do that. ما يود الذين كفروا, we drop the emphasis. And why is the emphasis there? It's because of the word that ends the previous verse. And the end of the word that ends with the previous verse is what? Double sound. And in Tajwid, when you have double sound, if you followed by meme, the meme must have emphasis, ghunna. And when it is ghunna for meme, then the meme will have what? A symbol of emphasis. يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تقولوا راعنا وقولوا انظرنا واسمعوا وللكافرين عذاب أليم. ما يود الذين كفروا وللكافرين عذاب أليم ما يود الذين كفروا. I hope the example is clear enough as far as the part number 1 of the question is concerned. Moving on to the second part of the question, which says, how do we read words that end with an extension? Now, let's take a look at this example from the SimplyRYQ Juz Amma. Again, once this example is understood, the rest, wherever you come across it, also will simply make sense, inshallah. So we have here Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. No word here ends with extension. However, Abasa wa tawalla, this ends with extension. An ja'ahul a'ma, extension. وما يدريك لعله يزكى, extension. أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى, extension. أما من استغنى, also extension. If you look based on the written Quran, they differ from one from another. However, we read them the same way. We apply the same stopping. Extension can be a constant, permanent, or original, they call it, or it can be fluctuating or conditional, temporal. All right. So every extension, no matter how long you need to extend it, will have basis. The basis is 2 points. 2 points of extension. That is watawalla, 2 points. Al-a'ma, 2 points. Wama you, this is 2 points. Yudrikala. I'm not saying yudrik because there is different conditions here. When you stop, it can be yudrik 4 or 6. But the basic, before you move into 6 or 4, or before you move to 4 or 6, you must start with 2 first. So the base amount of extension is 2 points. Anything below that is problematic, if I can use that word. Now, so let's agree. The basic is 2 points. Watawalla, 2 points. An ja'ahul a'ma, 2 points. وما 2 points. يدريك 2 points. لعله 2 points. يزكى 2 points. أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى 2 points. أمام 2 points. من استغنى 2 points. Now, then why is it that this one has waveform? And we have learned in our Juz Amma, SimplyRYQ Juz Amma series that whenever we have waveform, that means we need to extend it more than 2 points. It's minimum 5 points, 2.5 times, or 6 points, 3 times. Now, but this happens only when you are linking. And an example of linking is when this happen, you see this waveform. This waveform is the same as this waveform. But the difference between this waveform and this waveform is that this waveform happens in one word, in the middle of the word. And in Quran reading, we cannot stop in the middle of the word. We cannot say, no one should read the Quran by saying, Anja ahul a'ma. We don't do that. So we don't take a breath in the middle of reading. Anja ahul a'ma. That is wrong. If you hear a Quran reader doing that, he is committing a mistake. All right, unless he have a reason, Quranic reason to do that. If there is no Quranic reason, then it's a mistake. Now, so because it's in one word, we cannot stop in the middle of a word. So it is 5 points, one go. Ahul a'ma. Now, so because it's in one word, and then there is a waveform, the reason is that there is Hamza here. There is Hamza here. So because of this Hamza, we need to extend it 5 points. Ahul a'ma. But we cannot stop in the middle, right? Now, this waveform is followed by Hamza in one word. So now take a look at this. Watawalla. And then there is waveform. And then we stopped. Because we stopped, we can only apply 2 points. But if we link, then we have Hamza. The same Hamza that came after this waveform here. So whatever we did here, we do it here if we link. But here we cannot apply what we apply here because we cannot break this into 2. But this one we can break it into 2. In fact, usually we should break it into 2. But if you choose to link, then you apply whatever you apply here over here. That's why they call this al-maddu al-muttasil, connected mad. And here they call it al-maddu al-munfasil, separated mad. So when you connect it, you apply the same rule you apply in the connected one. All right. So now, and it also can also happen now that is happening in between 2 verses. It can also happen within one verse, meaning one verse means separated but in one verse. It can also happen. I'm supposed to give an example of that on this slide. But now take note. Abasa wa tawalla, 2 points. Ja'ahul a'ma. So how we connected this and we applied 5 points. Let's do the same here by connecting. Abasa wa tawalla an ja'ahul a'ma. Now let's take the 3 verses together. عبس وتولى أن جاءه الأعمى وما يدريك. We cannot say because we extended this one 5 points and here so of course 5 points, why don't we also apply the same here? Sounds good, isn't it? But we are following conditions and rules. So here the condition is that if you stop, you apply only 2 points. If you link, then you apply the 5 points we talk about. Why is it so? Because there is Hamza here after there. In fact, there's a waveform and there's Hamza. Here there is no waveform, let alone Hamza. There's no waveform, let alone Hamza. Right? So, Abasa wa tawalla an ja'ahu al-a'ma wa ma yudrika la'allahu yazzakka. So now, 3 verses. We apply this 5 points. 2 points, of course 5, 2 points, and then here we also apply 2 points, even though this one and this one look the same, but here we connected, here we didn't connect. This should be clear enough. أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى أما من استغنى أو يذكر فتنفعه الذكرى أما من استغنى. So this is how we read verses that end with extension, fluctuating extension, conditional extension, not permanent or constant extension. When I say constant extension, when I say constant extension, I'm talking about al-mad al-asli, al-mad al-tabi'i, as they say. And fluctuating or conditional mad is al-mad al-far'i, that change based on situation and condition. So I hope this answers the question of today's Q&A. Please do let in your questions if you have any feedback that can be highlighted or anything that you think can enhance what we are doing in the SimplyRYQ programs series and what have you. Until our next, in fact, tomorrow I will see you in the next Surah Al-Baqarah series for those who are following through Surah Al-Baqarah, and for those who are following through Juz Amma. I will see you in our next. Until then, see you in Jannah. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم